what I found personally from using this technique, and what theoretically comes up when you talk about method acting and these sorts of things, is that it's a chicken and the egg situation. I mean, it's not two. Again, this is not two. With the surface, and it's maybe a flip side of something. But once you start actually changing things, what changes what? Do you laugh because it's funny, or vice versa? That sort of thing. So that's probably evading, that's not answering your question directly, and probably not satisfactorily. But that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is to just dive right into it. And I have a thing on the internet on my website, and I can leave some of these here if you want to have a look afterwards, that has the web address and so on it, that gets into this. And it doesn't answer the questions definitively, but, for example, there's a thing that's two psychoanalysts, Jungian psychoanalyst Hal and Sidra Stone, who practice up north of here, came up with an approach to exploration, to self-psychology, and which leads to the kinds of things that we're talking about, called voice dialogue, in which the therapist, or it can be the person themselves, address themselves. You get into a light trance and you start addressing the village inside of you, or the conglomeration of quote, cells, subcells, subpersonalities, whatever you want to call it, inside of you, and you can find that they will talk to you. Now, if you look at that and you start talking to a subpersonality inside of you that is maybe under the control of the governing you or the governing ego or whatever, and you talk to them and you're in a problem, you're in a situation, say, where you want to change certain things about yourself. You can have this dialogue and you can bring them to the fore. One thing that can happen in this type of therapy, I think, and I'm no expert in it, it does seem to relate to the kind of question which obviously is going to come up that you just asked, that you can bring another self up front. There may be a self lurking there that is not shy, if it's shyness that you want to address in your cinemorphic manipulation of yourself, or going through, rewriting yourself and going through acting exercises and so on to get around it. Maybe there's this exuberant person who's just dying to get out, if you want to look at it that way. So I'm not a diehard Skinnerian. I mean, I had two, when I was in school, I had opposing sets of advisors tugging me in both directions. One was this strict Skinnerian, and I spent a lot of time in seminars with Skinner himself, but it wasn't him, it was a student of his. The other was this rabid existentialist. And so the question you asked bothered me, and it still does, the whole surface depth thing. So anyway, those are things to think about in this context. It's not like you're really ignoring, or it's not like I'm ignoring or suggesting that that the inside part is not important. But then again, inside, outside. We're at a conference about non-duality, so which is what? Let's see. There were some other examples of this I wanted to mention. One interesting one that I found that does relate to this that I came upon when I was putting some of this together is a book called Zen Physics by David Darling. I don't know whether any of you have read that or not. He points to something that's really interesting in this whole context. And the first part of the book talks about amnesia victims. talks about people who have, quote, they've forgotten who they are. They've lost themselves completely, but they're still walking around, you know, bumping into things. And so they have to create a new one. And in some cases, they have to create a new one and never regain the old one. In some instances, you'll have a situation where you start the creation process and the old one comes back or whatever. There are other cases when that doesn't happen. What happened to the old self? Who is this person? This person is, you know, a human body mind walking around with not missing anything, are they? Are they missing, what happened if they lost that old self? So what? So that's another way of looking at the point. And I think another way of talking about the kind of question that you ask. Where is all of that old stuff that you're talking about in this particular situation? I don't know. Where did it go? It's a mystery. So there are several quotes I have here, which I'll read, that I find amusing that relate to this. And then if there are other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. The first quote is well known from Muriel Rukeyser that says the universe is made of stories, not atoms. That relates directly to this. Then Terence McKenna said, ego is a structure that is erected by a neurotic individual who is a member of a neurotic culture against the facts of the matter. And culture, which we put on like an overcoat, is the collectivized consensus about what sort of neurotic behaviors are acceptable. The third quote, this is from Lon Chaney. Many of you may not know who Lon Chaney was. He was the man of 1,000 faces, old-time actor guy. His quote is, between pictures, there is no Lon Chaney. So, I mean, he lives in his characters, that's what he's saying. Jean Genet said, if you think you are and everybody else thinks you are, then you are. Then there's a Zen koan that says, who is it dragging this corpse around? Ken Wilber says, the ego is just a dream of the witness, the film that the witness creates, simply so it will have something to watch at the movies. Then the last one is, be careful what you're dreaming, or soon your dream will be dreaming you. That's from Willie Nelson.